Early this morning, a sacred space turned into a scene of terror. In Michigan, worshippers came expecting peace but were instead confronted with unimaginable violence. Gunfire echoed through the church walls, smoke filled the air, and prayers were drowned out by screams. What was meant to be a gathering of faith and fellowship became a place of fear and heartbreak. Today, we explore the events that unfolded, the lives affected, and the questions left unanswered. This is not just a headline, it is a wake-up call about safety, community, and resilience. On a quiet Sunday morning, just as services were about to begin, chaos erupted. A gunman drove a vehicle into the front doors of a church, forcing his way inside before opening fire on the congregation. Worshippers who had been preparing their hearts for prayer suddenly found themselves diving for cover, shielding loved ones and searching for safety in the chaos. Moments later, fire and smoke began to spread as parts of the building caught flame, adding to the panic. What was once a sanctuary quickly became a battlefield, with shattered glass, overturned pews, and terrified voices filling the air. Law enforcement and emergency responders rushed to the scene within minutes, but the damage was already done. In the aftermath, it was confirmed that at least one person lost their life and multiple others were left injured. Families were torn apart in a matter of seconds. Some were rushed to nearby hospitals with critical wounds, while others walked away physically unharmed but deeply scarred by the trauma of what they had witnessed. The church, once a beacon of peace and hope, now bears the scars of bullets and fire. Its members are left grieving, not just for those lost, but for the sense of safety that was stolen from them. Survivors describe moments of sheer terror, holding hands under pews, whispering prayers, and waiting desperately for help to arrive. The identity of the shooter has not yet been made public, and the motive remains unclear. What is known is that this attack was deliberate, calculated, and devastating. Authorities are treating it as both a violent assault and an act of arson, as the gunfire was followed by fire that engulfed much of the building. Investigators are combing through the wreckage, searching for clues. Witnesses are being interviewed, security footage is being reviewed, and officials are piecing together the timeline of events. One of the most haunting questions remains: why would someone target a place of worship, a house meant for peace, prayer, and community? As news of the shooting spread, the community was shaken to its core. Families gathered outside the church, some waiting anxiously for updates about loved ones, others breaking down in tears as grim news reached them. Neighbors brought water, blankets, and comfort to those displaced. Faith leaders from across the state expressed heartbreak and solidarity, reminding people that even in the darkest times, faith and community must hold strong. Candlelight vigils are already being planned, with people determined to honor the victims and stand united against fear. Local officials called for calm and healing, while at the same time promising a thorough investigation and justice for those harmed. Social media filled with messages of prayer, sorrow, and outrage as people around the nation shared in the grief of the Michigan community. There is something uniquely devastating about violence in a sacred space. A church is not just a building, it is a sanctuary, a place where people feel safe to pray, reflect, and connect with one another. When violence strikes here, it doesn't just wound individuals, it shatters the trust of an entire community. Throughout history, attacks on places of worship have carried symbolic weight. They are assaults not only on people, but on beliefs, traditions, and values. This shooting is a painful reminder that no place, however sacred, is completely safe from the violence of the world. It challenges us to confront hard questions about security, division, and the state of our society. Beyond the numbers and the headlines are the personal stories of those who lived through the nightmare. A mother shielding her children under a pew, a man helping an elderly worshiper escape through a side door, first responders rushing into a burning building, risking their own safety to save others. These are the stories that will be remembered long after the police tape comes down. Stories of bravery in the face of fear, of ordinary people becoming heroes when it mattered most. This tragedy resonates far beyond Michigan. It strikes a chord with every community of faith across the country. Questions are already being raised. How can we better protect our places of worship? What can communities do to respond to growing threats? And how do we balance the need for security with the openness that defines spiritual spaces? The broader conversation includes mental health, access to firearms, and the rise of violence in public spaces. But in the midst of debates, one thing remains clear. The victims, families, and survivors deserve support, compassion, and justice. In times of tragedy, people often ask, "What can I do?" The answer begins with empathy. Communities are organizing blood drives, donation campaigns, and counseling services for those impacted. Prayer services are uniting people across denominations and backgrounds, showing that grief and healing are shared experiences. For those watching from afar, the call is simple: honor the victims with compassion, avoid spreading misinformation, and look for ways to support organizations that provide relief and aid in the aftermath of violence. The Michigan church shooting is more than just a headline. It is a human tragedy. A place of worship has been scarred, lives have been lost, and hearts have been broken. But in the ashes of this tragedy, there is also resilience. The faith of a community is being tested, but not destroyed. In moments like this, we are reminded that darkness cannot overcome light, and hate cannot overpower love. Let us honor the memory of the victims not only with our prayers, but with action, working to build safer communities, stronger connections, and deeper compassion for one another. May the victims rest in peace. May the wounded find healing. And may the community, though shaken, rise again with faith and courage.